Everyone, and welcome to another other talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. This is the talk we do every third Sunday of the month for our friends who live in Europe, who live in North Africa, or anywhere on the African continent, Western Asia, the Middle East. All of those people are much better accommodated by this session as opposed to our regular Sunday talk. This one's at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time currently, and our second talk, our usual one that we have every week, is at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time every Sunday. So there we have it. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle, along with
the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
And today we're going to be talking about something that is important to our community at large, and that is going to be the work in the 21st century. This is, basically being a Sufi within our community or, in general in the 21st century. And we're going to touch back on that shortly, but first we need to do our YouTube spiel.
And that's my cue to tell you, hi, if you're watching us on YouTube and you have not subscribed to us, first of all, welcome. Second of all, please consider subscribing to the channel and helping us to thwart the evil avarice of YouTube and Google as a whole. And also, please consider, if you enjoyed this talk, leave us a like. Hit that thumbs up button. It's a small thing, but it helps us a lot in getting up in YouTube's whatever it is they do to figure out what they show who and all of that kind of stuff.
Those pesky algorithms.
Yeah. And if you didn't like it, hit the hate button. We enjoy your feedback.
Yeah, we do.
And there are some people who I love it because they come around regularly just to hate on our videos.
Have some loyal haters.
Yeah, we have some loyal haters.
We appreciate that too. But most of all, we appreciate comments.
Yes, we love your comments.
And we regularly get some really lovely ones. So thank you for those very much.
And ones that are very useful. We get excellent questions. I often think that we should take all of the questions that we've gotten, put them together in a book because they're interesting.
It's on the list.
And we do our very best to answer every single question that and comment that comes in. The only way that we won't is if you try and troll us, or if you make a comment that bashes somebody, us or anybody else. You can bash me, I don't care. But if you bash other teachers and things like that, your comment is just not going to get posted. So good adab, good behavior is the way to go.
Good manners, yeah. Yes. Quote unquote manners. So do you have anything else we need to add for news or updates?
Everything is growing.
Yes.
In frightening ways. We're terrified.
We are terrified.
We're holding in there anyway.
Yeah, and we do still each have one opening. Each of us respectively, we each have one opening, both me and Mushtaq. So one or two people. If you would like
a private consultation, private work, we are available to the next two lucky people.
Yep.
Or unlucky people.
As the case may be. So there you have it. I think that's good for our spiel. So our topic today, as you can see from our title, is based on that, we're drawing from that famous Rumi quote about this not being a caravan of despair. This is very important, and we will see why. So let's talk about the work.
The bit of the poem starts with come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Terrible translation from the Persian, but and that's just the idea for the whole poem. It's we don't care who you are. We don't care where you come from. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care if you have a religion. You get to come along if you want. The caravan is big. though we only have 3 camels because we're poor. So there we have it.
Yeah,
And
what inspired this topic? Do you think that's important to talk about?
yeah, what inspired this topic is more and more people are saying to us, hey, I want to be a Sufi. Right? And it's a little bit shocking, because this school is designed so that you don't have to be anything and you can come and hang out with us and walk off with whatever you want. But I guess it's now time to talk about what is required of that, because what happens is somebody says, I want to be a Sufi. And we say, no, you don't. Trust me, you don't want to be a Sufi. Be anything else. Go hang out with the Buddhists, they're fun. But then they keep coming back. And this happens more and more often. And it is to the point where it is obvious that people are going to do this, and there is a place for it. And so we're going to talk about what is actually required of you. And in general, what is required of you to hang out in the school, which is not much. You don't even have to pay money for this.
No.
So that's what inspired this talk, more than anything else. And the thing is that what worked 1,000 years ago in Baghdad or Bukhara does not work today. Not in the West. I mean, well, if you're living in Baghdad, what works is digging foxholes so that the bombs don't drop on you. But today, for a world community where people come from different experiences, things need to change in order to present the work of the school in its proper milieu. The biggest thing to change. When I was a young Sufi, that should be like sung to the Pirates of Penzance or something. When I was a young Sufi. Never mind. You were not a Sufi unless you were a Muslim. That was like, if you didn't have your Muslim card, you couldn't get your Sufi card. And that's how it had been for a long time, up until when Hazrat Inayat Khan came to the West. He created a form of, he called it universal Sufism, but it was sort of a mishmash of respect and taking from all religions. This is not that. But it came to my teachers that being a Muslim should not be required, because there are too many people who are not Muslims who could really benefit from this stuff and grow and become enlightened and save the world and do all of this. And they don't need to say La ilaha illallah to do that. So that is one of the biggest changes that has happened for us in this iteration of the school. So this is non-denominational in the sense that we don't care who you are. And at the same time, we respect the origins of the teaching. We don't say it's all one thing. It's what it is. This came through a particular lineage. And that lineage started with the Prophet Muhammad and then continued through his son-in-law and nephew Ali, and went through a whole bunch of people and ended up here. And you know, that I'm sure that those guys would look at us and go, how did we end up with that? Because we're small fry compared to them, but we got here. And the teaching, the essence of the teaching does not change. The methods do. Because what worked when, say, Gurdjieff showed up at the end of the 19th century doesn't work now. You are not 19th century Russian aristocrats or pompous Englishmen or snooty Frenchmen or callow Americans or any of the people that he worked with. You are sophisticated, worldwide, interconnected people. And so everything has to be done in these ways. Does this make sense?
Thumbs up if it makes sense so far.
Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. I have no clue, whatever.
Yeah, all right. And does anyone have any questions so far?
Yes.
Or thoughts they want to share? Yeah, go for it.
I heard recently, Mushtaq, that the word Sufi and the thought of Sufism as its essence may predate Islam in the sense that it is apparently said to be a way of viewing the world through the inner lobe, through the innerness of things, as opposed to its outerness. And therefore, that's how you have mystical forms of Christianity predating Islam, mystical forms of Judaism in the Kabbalah, I think that's translated as the Kabbalah. Would that be accurate to say that the
Almost.
concept?
And this has been this great argument in various parts of the Sufi community, the Western Sufi community. Spirituality predated Islam. The Gnostic path predated Islam. The Christians had it, the Jews had it, the Zoroastrians had it, everybody has it, right? To be human is to look for gnosis and to create religions and politics that prevent you from having it. Did I say that out loud? But Sufism, you will not, as far as I can tell, you will not find the word Sufi predating the Prophet. It is one particular path of that universal, mystical, Gnostic desire that is inherently through teachers who develop within the Islamic milieu. Just like Kabbalists do really great work, but they're not Sufis. Sufis are not Kabbalists, but there are things in common. Christian mysticism played a very important part in the early development of Sufism. As we know, Salman Farsi was apprenticed to a couple of heavy-duty Christian monastics before he found the Prophet on his journey from Persia down to Mecca. And so, and the thing that we talked about last week with the Sufi way of reading sacred texts, I'm pretty sure that the essence of that was lifted whole cloth from Christian monastic tradition. And then, you know, as Sufis do, the serial numbers were filed off, it was getting a new paint job, got a license for it, and we called it ours.
Yeah, and there are threads from Buddhism and from what people today would call shamanism. I mean, all of these things have definitely filtered into what we call Sufism today. And yes, yeah, there's no argument about that.
Yeah, inherently, though, Sufism originated at the feet of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
And that particular line stems from him. And people who don't like that cannot like it, but it doesn't make it any less true. And the Prophet himself, well, within the Surah of the Cow, it says right there is no compulsion in religion. And we need to live by those words. So we don't even, this is science, it's not religion anyway. But we have to honor where it came from without expecting anybody to adhere to any religious dogmas.
Is that a satisfying answer? Yeah, great. Cool. Any other thoughts so far?
Yeah, and we tell you this at the risk of scaring the crap out of you, because as you know, Muslims are scary.
Yeah.
I mean, Wael is very scary. I'm scary. Noor is extremely.
Well, I scared my family, that's for sure. They were not so psyched when I said, oh, I'm so interested in Islam and Sufism. Yay. I mean, it was a big thing. So I would imagine for some people listening, this is a bit challenging, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is nearly as hard to come out to your American parents that you are Muslim as it is to come out that you're gay.
Honestly, I'm definitely part of the queer community, and it was harder for me to talk about Islam in my household than it was about being LGBTQ, all that stuff, which is, that speaks a lot to the prejudices that have been normalized in a lot of families. So it is what it is.
Yeah, even talking about this, I expect that we'll lose half our viewership.
And it's sad, but we need to speak our truths. That's very important.
And for people who go, I want to be a Sufi, you need to know what you're in for.
Yeah, exactly.
What you're not in for.
This is primarily for those folks. This is for them.
But it's also for everybody, because the same truths adhere whether you go, I'm a Sufi, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm
right.
And as I said before, we don't care what you are.
Yeah.
You are a human. Human first, label second. Maybe human is a label too.
Nonetheless,
we have a bunch of points that we're going to talk about today. And for the forum, we may even publish them at some point in the very near future. So 1,000 years ago, some advice was given by one of the teachers of our particular path to people who wanted to be students. And we're going to go through those as a way to understand what is required of you to be in this work. Whether you want to be a Sufi means that you have taken an initiation, which is not required to study with us. It is sort of for those people who know that they want it, after we've done everything we can to chase them away, that's what happens. So the first thing that is said is your overall state should be founded in skill, self-discipline, and piety.
Or piety.
Piety, yeah, however one says that particular silly word.
Piety is a scary word for some.
Yeah, piety is a very scary word. Skill, we understand. Self-discipline, we understand, or we think we understand. Self-discipline means that the force of doing comes within you, from within you, rather than from without. You do your work not because there is a father figure or a mother figure shaking their finger at you going, do your work. You do it because you do it. Because the bad news is, for those who are looking for parental figures, is there aren't any here.
I have a reminder for much talk.
Oops.
Oh no, it's good. It's good to have reminders. The second idea is study the works of your predecessors. This is easier for some people than others, because a lot of the works of our predecessors are in Farsi, Arabic, and Turkish. And some of the translations are good, some of them not so much. We work on making them better. But fortunately, within the school, there are people who speak all of these languages fluently and can help with translation. Wael has been priceless in this.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
has
he's
been
even improved
amazing.
my pronunciation, which is abysmal.
And we've had some help with Persian from Zainab, and that's been lovely too.
Yes.
And
So,
Peilon has helped us a bit
yes,
too.
Peilon has helped us a lot because there is a lot of Taoist influence that happened in Central Asian Sufism when the Taoists and the Sufis went bonk, sat down and had tea and talked about stuff. And being good Sufis, they stole all the good stuff that they could find.
So thank you, Peilon. All right.
The third one, learn the ethical principles offered by the prophet, the peers, and the teachers. Avoid the society of ignorant claimants to spiritual authority. There's a lot to unpack there. The ethical principles are pretty universal. They boil down to, don't be an asshole. Be nice to one another and stay awake. That's the entirety of the teachings of every religion on the planet in a nutshell. And it's been said a lot of different ways, and you study the different ways to say it until you get it into your head that that's what ethics are. Ethics are seeing the other as subject and respecting their subjectivity and avoiding Maya. And Maya is, so for every person who is teaching the work, there are 1,000 people who are the priests and priestesses of Maya who are helping you have better dreams and wonderful illusions.
Ideally.
Ideally.
Yes.
Or having nightmares, you know, it's like, and again, we're fine with however people want to do it. But if you are on this path, you need to look at anybody who is teaching anything with more discernment than the normal person. And that includes us, because the fact of the matter is that we have been known to be full of shit from time to time. And as much as we try to shovel that out whenever possible, some of it can get through.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah, I want to get a picture of myself that says, what, me perfect? Yeah, so here we have no perfect masters. We have imperfect masters. A Sufi might say that the last perfect human being was the prophet and the rest of us are just trying to catch up. They might say that. So this is an interesting one. A lot of these are useful, but some of them are more useful when on this path. And this one is, when invited to a congregational practice, meaning by some other group, join, but never lead. And this, back in the times when this was all Muslim, this meant, you know, go to Jummah, go to Friday prayer, but never be the imam, never do the call to prayer, never make yourself stand out as if you were important.
Don't try to take over the place.
Yeah, this is also true. And I learned this through martial arts. When I used to go to a martial arts school, I put my white belt on. Didn't matter how much I knew. I would go in there, I would put on my white belt. I would not say anything to make anybody think that I had any opinion about what was going on at all. I was just there to learn, and I tried to be a humble learner. And this is a good way to live your life. So, any questions on this so far?
So far, so good?
Good.
Thumbs up if you're good. Cool. Great. Awesome.
So I'm going to give you these three together because they're important. It's do not seek for fame, for in fame lies calamity. Do not meddle in the affairs of others. Never become intimate with the rich and powerful. Originally, that was kings and princes. But in this case, rich and powerful is more appropriate. And these three things will save you from grief. You know, so fame, again, in the martial arts community, you know, which I came up in, everybody wants to be famous, right? Everybody wants to be great grandmaster. And sometimes I hear the titles that people have given themselves, and it's like, it takes longer to say their titles than it does to say their names. Great Grandmaster Sifu Sheikh Guru Fred. And it's like, geez.
Yeah.
Don't forget Pendekar.
Oh yes, Pendekar, yes. Maha Pendekar. The latest I heard when that is Maha Pendekar Basar. And if our Indonesian student were here, he would be laughing his ass off at this point.
So for those of us who don't know, what does that mean?
That's like, Maha means great.
Yeah.
Pendekar is a title that is given to you by your school and students that says that you're a good teacher. Guru just means teacher, but we in the West, we think of guru as a great mystical person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and you see that, and titles strung together. And that's because, you know, human beings like to be seen as famous, as important. And this says, do not be important. I have not used, I've earned various ranks in martial arts. I have not used a title in 30 years, probably. I've run like several successful schools, and I have not required anybody to call me anything. In my last school, my students found out about the term guru, and they started calling me that just to bug me. But it was affectionate, so I didn't mind.
Yep. And neither Mushtaq nor I use titles here in this space either. So
Yeah.
That's intentional.
Yeah, titles create separation. Fame creates separation.
But Aaron says there's still a lot going on in the martial arts community in that regard.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, that is almost like an STD.
God.
It's the spiritual equivalent to herpes. Once you get it, you don't get rid of it, and it just lays there and is transmitted around.
Aaron says it's rampant.
Now, the idea of do not meddle in the affairs of others. This is incredibly important, because when you see somebody who needs help, your tendency will be to help them. You see them doing something one way, running their business a particular way, running a school a particular way, living their life a particular way, and you went, I could help this person. But you don't, because you need to respect their choices. We're going to get, hopefully a little bit later, to the idea of affirmative consent, which is a central precept of the school. Nothing happens without the affirmative consent of both parties. And affirmative consent, it's not, you come to my school, therefore I can teach you. Affirmative consent is when they say, hey, would you teach me this thing? And you go, you know, this is gonna hurt, right? And they say, yeah, I know, teach me anyway, I'm ready. That's affirmative consent. which can be withdrawn by either party at any point. And if we don't understand that, we create tyranny. So do not meddle in the affairs of others. And never become intimate with the rich and powerful. And that includes priests, politicians, high muckety muck gurus, anybody like that. I've had over the years a few teachers wanting me to like come and hang out with them, and they have thousands of students and are making millions of dollars, and I'm like, no. It's very, very tempting. I could go there and put on a show and make a lot of money, but once I am involved with this person, their reputation will rub off on me. And we want to avoid that. My reputation is bad enough, right? I worked hard to get my very own bad reputation, and I don't need any help from anybody. So you have that thought. One of my favorites. Be a nomad. Inwardly, don't make a permanent home for yourself, and don't allow yourself to feel settled in any place. This is a really hard one because we all want a permanent home, you know, even if it's a hole in the wall somewhere, a little cave that we can call our own. But the principle is that nothing is our own. We own nothing. And the principle, one of the principles of the work is to be a traveler, to be, traveler as translated into salik is one of the names for a Sufi student. Some of the names in Arabic have been bastardized and stolen and are now corrupted, like talib, which means a student. We would never use that term anymore because it's got too much crud on it. But being a traveler, that's okay. Being a nomad is how we think of ourselves. We are not, there's a story, which I am going to tell you, about a British person who came to a Sufi and asked to visit him. And he came in, and in the Sufi's room, there was almost nothing. There was a little mat on the floor for the person to sleep, and virtually nothing else. And the Englishman looked around and said, "Where's all your stuff?" And the Sufi looked at the Englishman and said, "Where's all your stuff?" And the Englishman said, "I'm a traveler. I didn't bring much with me." And the Sufi said, "Exactly. I am also a traveler through this world." And that's what this means, to be in a constant state of traveling, to be a nomad. Even if you live under the same roof for your whole life, raise kids there, have grandkids, still inwardly be a traveler.
Yeah, I think of this in a curiosity sort of way too, like that willingness to roam far and wide, metaphorically speaking, in search of understanding and knowledge, just as, you know, the saying of the prophet, go even unto China. And that means we do have to have this sense of expansiveness and open-mindedness in order to witness understanding and knowledge and wisdom where we might find it.
So there's that. The next one is pretty specific, which is be balanced in the use of sacred music and sacred dance. For the excess of these things destroys the feelings, but do not reject the sacred dance, for many are devoted to it and rely upon it. So for those of you who are old enough to remember the 60s, once upon a time in Golden Gate Park, this dude showed up, old guy, white beard, longer than mine. And he started gathering the hippies around him and teaching them dances, which he called the dances of universal peace. He was known as Sufi Sam, or Sufi Ahmad Chishti, or Samuel Lewis. And he felt sent to Golden Gate Park to be a missionary to the hippies. And that created an organization that's still around today called the Sufi Islamia Ruhaniyat Society. And they still do the dances that they learned in the park. And it's good for them. So we want to support that sort of thing, but at the same time, it's not the central focus. The next ones are pretty straightforward. Speak little, eat little, sleep little. Good advice for anybody. And that whole moderation in all things.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know how I feel about the little sleep thing, but
yeah, well, what that means is don't oversleep.
Yep.
Sleep enough to satisfy your body's needs, but don't indulge in sleep. There are some people who can sleep 14 hours a day and will if they have a chance.
Yeah.
And it also means don't sleep in your waking life.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Eat little means eat enough to sustain your body. Don't overindulge, because you'll get fat and lazy and you won't be able to do the work. Even if you don't get fat, food is an anesthetic at a certain level. It releases all sorts of rest hormones. And so bearing that in mind, and sleep little, yeah, sleep enough. Keep away from the crowd and learn the value of your own solitude. This is one of the hardest ones, because you have to learn to not be bored with yourself.
This may mean not just flipping through social media
Yes.
endlessly and mindlessly every time you have a free moment.
Yeah, because social media is indeed the crowd. Do not enter into discussion with the foolish, the ignorant, with the rich, or with worldly people. This is really important in these days, because social media gives you opportunities to do this very thing over and over and over again. You know, there's that old cartoon, quick to the keyboard, somebody is wrong on the internet. And I myself, because I love a good debate, I can spend hours debating people on the internet if I allow myself to do so. And I don't, as a rule. Very rarely will I engage in debates, and only under certain circumstances. I don't go to other people's page and go, you're wrong.
Nah.
No,
That's a waste
of time.
Yeah.
It is bad spiritual discipline. Now, this next one is really important for the path. Women and men are equal in all things. Get over it. There is no inferiority or superiority between gender.
Unfortunately, there's still quite a bit of this in a lot of contemporary spiritual communities, even some that I've participated in as a guest. That was interesting, but it definitely showed me that that was not the kind of norm I wanted to uphold, especially now that, you know, we're facilitating our own community. That's just not what we're about.
That does not hold in modern contemporary Sufism as we do it. If you want to go to the museum Sufis and you're a woman, you know, you're going to wear a scarf and you're going to sit in the other room while the men are having all the fun. You may get to help prepare them dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sigh.
So,
And you guys may notice that I tend to be quiet, but this is not gender reinforcement stuff. This is me working through my own, let's say, internalized sexism. I tend to silence myself. And part of my journey as a teacher and as a Sufi student is to take that on and see what I can do to challenge that.
yep. Yeah, you picked up some bad habits along the way.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens when you grow up in a culture where this stuff is more subtle these days, but still very normalized. What's that?
Institutionalized too.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yep.
So this one surprisingly will freak out a lot of people. Even people who should know better. I remember having a conversation with a Pakistani friend, and I referred to God in the neutral, and he said, "You should always refer to God in the masculine." And I looked at him and said, "Does God have a dick?" And he was like, and he said, "No." Then why? Because it's always been done that way.
Boring.
Yeah.
But that is a hot button issue.
It really is. I mean, if we talk about this too much, we got to be prepared for fights. Because there are some people that will never accept the idea of women as equal to them, which is probably good because that means that women are superior to them and they don't know it. And if they did, it would crush them. Just saying.
So did we miss the food one, or you?
Nope, I am at that right now. It's simple. Eat pure food, avoid doubtful food. This is important. Pure food in this context at the time meant halal food, which is food that has been prepared in a certain way and is of acceptable kinds. Now, we can take the idea of halal and expand it, because what does halal mean? It means that the animal has always been treated humanely from its birth to its death. It's like a friend of mine who raised cattle. She said, "My ideal is to give this cow or this steer a perfect life. And at the end of it, they have one bad day." And she really worked to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather raised cattle on his farm, and that was an important thing, was you care for them and you give them the best that you have. And then when the time comes to take these cows to slaughter, it has to be done with grace. It has to be done swiftly. And it's meant to spare the animal the trauma of causing the end of its life.
Yep.
That's better for us and better for them. We should not have to witness their suffering or cause them to suffer. It's important for our well-being as well to ensure that.
Yeah, death is inherently bad for the animal. You have to understand that.
There's no way around that. Yeah.
But yeah, the idea, I had to learn how to do halal slaughter when I was a young dervish.
Mhm.
And that means that you have to learn to cut a sheep's throat so that both carotids and jugulars in the windpipe are severed in one stroke of a very, very sharp knife.
Yeah.
And they're unconscious and dead before they hit the ground. I just got a message from Funny that says that she is not going to be able to make it today.
Sad.
It is sad.
We love you, Funny. And she watches the replay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's us participating in the circle of life. And I think that's critical too, but we can do it in a way that is not needlessly harmful.
Or cruel.
Cruel, yeah.
Yes. And this takes it to all forms of animal cruelty. Cockfights, dogfights, even games like races if they are cruel to the animal. You know, some races, like dog races, are inherently not cruel. They're just doing what the dog loves to do. So if you race greyhounds or you race Saluki or any of the really fast breeds, they love to run. So you give them an opportunity to run and you give them something to chase that's not alive, because being torn apart by dogs is probably not really fun. You know, everybody has a good time.
Yeah, raised with respect for the animal and their instincts and needs, all that.
So we have that. Now here's another one that people don't like. Avoid relationships until you experience the other as subject. Seeing the other as object arouses desire for this world. And if you are attached to this world, your practice is in vain. Do you understand what that means?
Anyone want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, because this one's always a hot button too.
Yeah. Do you want to read it again, Mushtaq?
I'll read it again. Avoid relationship until you experience the other as subject. Seeing the other as object arouses desire for this world. And if you are attached to the world, your practice is in vain. Now that's couched in a particular kind of language. That means you cannot have a real relationship with somebody unless it's subject to subject. I look at a beautiful woman and I go, I want her. Only I don't want her. I want whatever image is in my head. Has nothing to do with her. I have no idea who she is. And that is spiritual poison. If I am with someone and I can experience their inwardness, their subjectivity as a connection to my own, if I can see them as an individual with a past, a present, a future, determination that is other than mine, then I get to the point where I can have a relationship. When I can look at my partner and go, I see your meaning and I support it, even if it's not exactly the same as my meaning. That's important. And if you don't, then you're always looking at the other as object. And that means you become attached to object. You become attached to the other as object. That's the trophy wife. Y'all know what a trophy wife is, right? In some ways, this is one of our most important, if controversial teachings. It upsets people.
Yeah, that's why I wanted us to repeat it, because
Yeah.
I feel like this is a huge piece of what we stand for.
Yep. And we totally support people having relationships. The Prophet said, there is no monkery in Islam. There is no being a celibate priest somewhere up in a cave for your whole life. You know, the Sufi path is one of complete engagement in the world, and that includes having a family, and having a family be the most important thing in your life. Now, some people have said it should be your religion first, then your family, then everything else. And we say, no, your family comes first. If your religion takes you away from your family, your religion is false. If your religion does not completely support you being connected to your family, you being intimate with your family, you taking care of your family, it's false. Any spiritual path that does that is false, as far as we're concerned. It would certainly be false.
Responsibility, yeah. Fulfilling those responsibilities of caring for those who have a certain level of reliance on you. They're trusting you. Got to fulfill that trust as best as possible.
And so your spiritual path needs to support that rather than take away from that. You know, we say, we'd love to get your donations. We really appreciate them. And for those of you, and you all know who you are, who donate to us regularly, every day we are grateful, and we remember you to God.
Definitely. Thanks.
But we don't want any money that is not disposable income. You don't pay us first, you pay us last, or you donate to us last, not first. And that means we're never going to be rich. We know that. And we don't care, because this is incredibly important.
Aaron likes your use of the word monkery.
Yeah, it's a very loose translation from the Arabic, but I think it works.
It works. It's great.
So there is the suggestion, don't laugh uproariously, for too much hilarity destroys the sensitivity of the heart. Nevertheless, you must always be cheerful and ready to rejoice with others. This to me is in the context of, when it's funny, laugh. Don't try and make things funny that aren't. But if it's really funny, laugh a lot. Never despise anyone on any pretext. Hard one for me, I have to tell you. Because there are people out there that are probably, they probably deserve some despising. I just remind myself on a daily basis that it's not my job. This is the nice thing about having a bit of religion in you, is that I can go, oh, it's God's job to despise this person if he wants to.
Let God do the work.
Yeah.
Carry that burden.
But this is important, because despising people means you have created an attachment to them, and your mind is stuck on them, and it's not stuck on your work. And you need to get rid of this. Do not embellish your outer person, for ornament is a mark of inner poverty. This doesn't mean don't look good when you go out. It doesn't mean if you're a woman, or even if you're a man, I don't care, don't wear makeup. But think of the classic image of the pimp with the fancy costume, right? That's embellishing the outer. Or I love this with the mega church preachers who either come out wearing $5,000 suits or ridiculous costumes, you know, like the cowboy preachers. I mean, these guys come out, they got the cowboy hat, they got the Western bolo tie with the big old chunk of rock in it. They got the cowboy boots that cost more than most of their congregation could afford to put down in 3 months. That's what it's talking about.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like gigantic ass turbans that are just really meant to be.
Any turbans at all if you're in the West.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like dressing like a 19th century Turk to tell everybody how special you are, especially if you're a white boy. And we see that a lot. I mean, the bigger the turban, the more foolish the dervish, we used to say. And so there are always excuses for this. They say, we dress like this because this is sunnah. But that's not how the prophet dressed. He did not dress like a 19th century Turk. He dressed like a 6th century Arab. And it's very plain dress. I mean, you go to like where Wael lives, you'll see hundreds of people dressed like that, just walking up and down because it's normal. Because it's a practical way to dress if you happen to live in a really hot desert.
Yeah, I was going to say it suits the environment there.
Yeah, but nobody who goes around like that dresses like just a regular normal Arab. They have to have something that says we're special. We want to dress in a way that says we're not special. This one is important. Never quarrel with people and never ask favors of anyone. Quarreling is a total waste of time. There's a little meme that goes around that I absolutely love. Somebody who's going up to this this guru figure, and it's like an Englishman. It's always an Englishman. And the Englishman says, what do you think is the path to a happy life? And he says, do not quarrel with fools. And the Englishman says, I disagree. And the guy says, you're right.
It works.
It works.
It works.
It's hard because it's that whole, somebody's writing on the internet. Oh no.
Yeah. God, we're all so vulnerable to that these days.
Yep. And the idea of don't ask anyone for favors, that can be really, really hard. But you have to be very careful when you do that, because asking somebody for a favor, even a small one, means that you create an obligation for yourself towards them and for them towards you. They become obligated to you if they agree to do a favor, and you don't want that. Yeah, after that, it's be sure that you are a burden to no one. And we've talked about this till we're blue in the face. You know, a real Sufi is not a burden. And they don't expect people to serve them. They expect to serve people.
And we've also talked about how that service can be as simple as watching someone's kids while they run to the store or telling stories.
Yes.
Those things are priceless.
Ideally doesn't look like service.
Yeah.
And then the last two things, put no confidence in the world or worldly people, and let your heart be filled with humility. Let your actions be straightforward and your prayers sincere. And that is a basic outline of what it takes to be a Sufi, what it takes to be an initiated member of this particular path. And with that being said, you can hang out in this school and study and become completely enlightened, totally awake, highest level of consciousness attainable to mankind, and never, ever be a Sufi. It is not required of you. We don't care. We don't love followers, we love people.
We don't need followers. We don't want
God,
them.
no. Followers are a pain in the ass.
They're pretty much, that would be anathema to what,
Yeah. First of all, having followers is like herding cats. Once you have them, you got to keep them going, and you got to keep them following you, and they'll be wandering off in different places, and you got to go, no, come back, come back. And then you have to get dogs.
Yeah.
Right? You get a few border collies, and you train them into going and barking at the followers who go wandering off so that they'll come back and stay in the pack.
Rooting
And then
the
you have
sheep.
to feed the dogs.
Yeah.
We don't need this. Nobody needs this.
Oh,
And,
Aaron, yeah.
yeah,
Aaron
there's-
says, reminds me of that scene from Life of Brian.
Yeah, there were some fun truths in that movie. So this is the basis of the Sufi path as we follow it in the 21st century, in case anybody ever wants to be a Sufi. If you don't want to be a Sufi, there is good advice for you in this anyway, for being able to live your life in an authentic way. And if none of this means anything to you, that's also completely fine, and you're still welcome to hang out with us. And I would say that you wouldn't be treated any differently, but that would be a lie. You will be treated better if you're not a Sufi.
Is that so?
Yeah, because then you're a guest in our house.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions so far or thoughts?
Comments? Who thinks that we're completely full of shit? Show of hands.
I mean, I'm raising my hand anyway, regardless. Yeah, well,
I have one question, if that's okay.
Of course.
please, yeah. I mean, you don't have to apologize for having questions. Yeah.
I think it's a bad habit. I tend to apologize for quite a lot of things.
Me too. Don't worry.
I've heard Mushtaq and you speak a lot about the importance of embodiment and how our bodies are the vehicle that we interact with life. Are there any of the practices within the Sufi traditions that encourage one to be embodied or to take care of one's body in that sense?
Yes. Noor?
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple things come to mind is the turning practice. That's certainly a practice in really, I think when people watch it, they think these dervishes are zoning out, but the truth is they are meditating and they're very present to their own bodies. They're not allowed to just space out and start thinking about what they're going to make for dinner that night while they're
Yeah, if you
doing
do
their
that, you're
turning.
going to fall over. Trust
Yeah,
me, I know.
so that's one.
Yeah. And the sacred dance actually comes from our tradition. Dance is maybe not the right word, but it looks like it from the outside sometimes. Physical exercise, often done in groups, like the Gurdjieff dances, only not the Gurdjieff dances. But the practice of embodiment is essential to the path.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of the things that I listed that imply that, but that reminds me to make it more explicit.
Yeah. And as far as taking care of the body goes, I mean, we hear stories about how during plague times, the Sufis and those they cared for were the ones who made it through those experiences with the least amount of struggle, because part of their practice was to practice cleanliness, to practice regular bathing, going beyond just the ablutions every day. And as a result, they were able to keep, pathogens at bay.
Yeah, there's a story of Bahauddin Naqshband. When he was a student, one of the jobs his teacher gave him was to go out every day and clean the streets.
Yeah.
Anything that was dirty or unclean or dangerous, while at the same time keeping himself scrupulously clean. And that was a tradition that saved probably thousands of lives during the Black Plague, because in Bukhara and Samarkand, all of the Naqshbandis did this. They went out and they cleaned and they cared for the sick, and they practiced really good hygiene. And consequently didn't die.
Yeah. Yep. And they cared for the children of the community. So those children were able to survive as a result of that practice of cleanliness.
So that is all part and parcel of embodiment. But for people who are doing the Sufi thing, there are very specific exercises that one learns to do that are very important to our way of doing things. And again, they're not required. There are lots of things that anybody can do, including a good martial art. Maybe not Taekwondo, because that's a little bit too external, but that's only because I pick on them a lot. Yeah, Taekwondo is for younger people who have lots of energy and great flexibility and lack discipline. But there's that. One practice that I recommend that is a contemporary practice is called fighting monkey. They are not perfect in what they do, but they will definitely open your body up for you to new experiences and teach you flow, which is one of the important things that the physical aspects of Sufism teach you. The exercises that we do are designed to create flow. Does that help answer your question?
Awesome. Great. Yeah, any other questions or thoughts? How about you, Peilon? What's come up for you today?
Not so much questions, but lots of thoughts.
Oh yeah, please, sure. Yeah.
Mishtaq has been, as Mishtaq said at the beginning, there are a lot of like Venn diagram overlaps with other cultures. And ever since I started studying Mishtaq, he has always been extremely supportive of me learning about this stuff through the Chinese cultural path, just because I can read the old texts and things like that. So learning the overlap portion through Taoism, right now I'm learning the I Ching. And so, for example, when we talked about not meddling in the affairs of others, the I Ching talks about that in hexagram number 4, which is their teaching hexagram. And they liken it to, not in the text, but in the author that I'm reading right now, he likens it to ringing up, you know how like in the Zen temples, there's a big bell.
Mm-hmm.
And the monks have to go and hit the bell to make the sound. And he likens the teacher to the bell and the student to the act of hitting the bell. And so the teacher does not impose themselves and make a lot of noise towards people until they come willingly and hit the bell and ask the question. And then the teacher answers them. So that's one thing that came to mind. Another thing that came to mind, especially with the I Ching, because the I Ching is the book of changes, which is when you guys talked about being a nomad, I interpreted that concept as sometimes you don't do the travel, sometimes the travel comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the change of state because the Book of Changes is all about the change of state, the change of environment. The change happens as a natural progression of life, whether you want it or not. And so when the travel comes to you, still having that ability, that flexibility, that mental readiness to accept the change and not fight the change. And so that you can actually do the things necessary to make it through the changes and make it out of the changes in the best condition. So those also talk to me. And then one last comment, which is when you talked about the outer embellishments. I mean, for me being a female of the 21st century, having the Instagram, having the Facebook, having the YouTube, always looking at who's dressed in what brands or what handbags or what shoes or what cars and things like that. For me, that definitely resonated. I mean, one of the big things that's happened ever since studying with Mushtaq in this past year is getting rid of a lot of my very fancy brand name things. All of a sudden having those things, it wasn't just no longer wanting them. It almost felt like if I wanted to keep them, it was a hindrance, because that meant that I was holding on to what that flashiness was trying to communicate. And right now I don't miss them at all. So yeah, lots of thoughts for me in this one.
Those are a lot of juicy thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. And though I do have to tell you that I didn't have you start studying the truths held in your culture for your sake. I did it for my sake so that I can learn all of the stuff that you're learning.
And here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your generosity, Palin. That's awesome. I mean, wow. I mean, a lot of that really brings to life what we're talking about. Like you said, about being a nomad is not just about leaving home. It's about having that flexibility to move and be moved.
Yeah. And to realize that the journey is going to come to you.
Yeah. Yep. And having some level of preparedness. That's what openness is to some degree. Awesome.
I just wanted to jump in and say that I was really intrigued to hear that you were looking at the connections between Sufism and Taoism, or Palin was. I don't know whether, to what extent you've given any presentations on it or anything, but there's a book that I've got that you probably know, by somebody called Toshihiko Izutsu, which is a comparative study of Ibn Arabi and Taoism. He was an extraordinary Japanese linguist who learned Arabic in like a month or something. I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I've been meaning to read it, and I was just wondering whether.
Yeah, you.
I mean, I'd love to
on Facebook.
hear your thoughts on
remember.
that stuff.
Yeah, and I bought that on your recommendation, and it's a good book.
Right.
Yeah, and
he's.
The connection between Sufism and Taoism kind of works like this. You have the Silk Road, right? And the Silk Road went right through our turf in Bukhara and Samarkand, the turf of where this tradition comes from, into China and then back. And so all of these cool Chinese guys would come and they would hang out, right? And they would gravitate towards the Sufis because they didn't care if you were Muslim or not. If you, as a matter of fact, if you weren't, you might be more interesting. And so a lot of Taoism informed the Sufism of Central Asia, especially of Chinese Turkestan, as they call it. And it's a very important connection that most people won't admit to, but is so obviously there that you can't deny it.
I totally agree. So, Michael, do you think you could repeat the title of that book? So people, I think it got choppy.
Yeah, sorry. It's Sufism and Taoism. That's all it's called. By Izutsu. That's Izutsu. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's very academic, but it's very beautifully written. And one other thing, the other phrase that I had kind of ringing in my head while you were talking, was the expression "be more ordinary," which was a phrase I came across in a book about Zen Buddhism years ago. I forget which Zen teacher it was, but it seems to be very in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. And it's interesting because, again, we have this idea of doing things in moderation, right? So there is a certain sense in which if we swing too much into very obviously debasing ourselves, it has that effect of making us stand out and making us seem like perhaps holier than thou and all that stuff. So ordinary just means basically going with the flow, really, and not trying to present a certain ostentatious image, whatever that may be. And that's why we say there's nothing wrong with wearing jewelry or having a favorite handbag or wearing makeup or whatever else. It's really about what's being conveyed through that and the intention that you're bringing to it.
Yeah, if I can just second that one, because yesterday I was in a conversation where I was reminded of my old corporate life of there are very, in some sense, rich and powerful people at the top that not everybody, but lots of people want to be around. And so then the question becomes, okay, if I want to be in this person's sphere, or if I want to have certain things, fancy things, the question, just as Noor was saying, was, what is one's intention? Or the way that I think about it now is like, what am I chasing? Because
That's it, yeah.
once I'm chasing, not being ordinary, like there's a difference for me personally between being so good at something that I want to do that other people notice, and then naturally I am quote unquote not so ordinary, versus I'm chasing the fame, I'm chasing the fortune, I'm chasing other people knowing me, I'm chasing other people's attention. And so whether it's trying to be an Instagram model or wanting the rich and powerful to notice me, which Mushtaq had said before was a very how did you say it? It's a Chinese curse. I can't figure out which curse they're talking about. That one of the curses is to have the rich and powerful.
Yeah, may you come to the attention of important people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an actual Chinese curse, but it was presented as a Chinese curse. Yeah, it starts with, may you live in interesting times.
May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, and then may you come to the attention of important people, both of which are curses.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you look at it, whatever origin that may have, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in those two phrases. Yeah.
And so yesterday's conversation where I was listening to people, basically, I was listening to stories about others twisting themselves into pretzels and selling their souls and deforming, like straying from the path and then deforming into something because they were chasing XYZ.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
and for me, that's what it means to, when Mushtaq and Noor says to be more ordinary. For me, it's the consciously choosing to not chase that. So that, just a comment.
Yeah. Well, great comments. Yeah. And while offers a great efforting. Yeah. So do you want to say a little bit more about that?
I think it's something, I'm sure it's something Mushtaq said, because it rings and percolates in my mind, and then something comes up. But it just comes across as people that do that chase. I love that word. The chasing just seems to be a result of this artificial great hoo-ha efforting, as opposed to simply just being without the great efforting, just doing the work, being the work, and whatever comes out of that will come across effortlessly. I'm 100% sure it's something Mushtaq said, that I'm just saying in a very similar way. But
Even if it isn't, I'll be happy to take credit for it.
Yeah, that's but well put. Yes, I mean that's you described well what I was trying to get at when I was saying, you know, going with the flow. Just this sense of there's not that graspingness to it. You're doing the work, and as you said, being the work. I love that, and letting things flow naturally from that. Yes. Yep. Lovely.
So we've been going for a while.
Yeah, I just want to touch base with Aaron and Neil. How are you doing? What's come up for you? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, as the token trophy husband, I think I can speak for gender inequality, because you can look like me and be a trophy husband, but in order to be a trophy wife, you've got to be clearly objectifiable in particular ways. You know, while you were speaking, I was struck by how I think, in one way, obvious this is. You might say commonsensical or uncommon sense, but true, you know. And on the other hand, how complex it can get when you start thinking about the objectivity, subjectivity, or objectification versus the subject in popular culture when it comes to the portrayal. I suppose I call it a fetishization or a pornographization of the erotic experience, the human intimacy, which completely objectifies the other, whether it's male or female. And then you see that repeated in social media, the influencer culture. You know, I saw a lot of responses to a meme this afternoon of a young lady who posted a picture of herself, and she was slim, she had a leotard on, and she had a t-shirt advocating veganism on the back, but it was a message for veganism presented in totally objectification of herself. But this is standard practice in influencer culture, which disturbs me as a parent and, you know, as a human being. The other thing that perplexed me or caught my attention was the issue about not getting into conflicts. I like debate. You know, I taught at university level as well as high school level, etc. So, you know, debate is your tools of trade. But online, it's hopeless. You know, people aren't there for intellectual engagement and grappling over issues. But I was thinking, take it a step further. You know, because I remember years ago reading one of the hexagrams in the I Ching, which suited me down to the ground. It said, "Do not contend." Might have been number 57 or something. And it was like, for me, that was a kick in the head. Do not be contentious. And, you know, having grown up in a culture that prizes competition and imagines society as being rigid hierarchies, highly competitive, meritocratic hierarchies within which it's, you know, survival of the nastiest, etc., and particularly coming from a very rural, patriarchal, aggressive type of background, to back away from that ethos, which permeates, just absolutely permeates, particularly male masculine identity, and definitely corporate and capitalist, you know, late capitalist culture. And it's you know, it's a great ethos. Very difficult to get away from it because we're just embedded in a world that values contention and competition.
Yeah, I mean,
that was my thought.
Good stuff. We talked about institutionalized, you know, ways of moving and thinking, I think that speaks to what you're talking about. Yeah, I think it's important. I love everything you said. I think with the piece about bodies, you know, the sexualization of bodies or the over sexualization of bodies and fetishization, those things are really challenging right now, because on the one hand, it's kind of a situation in which women's bodies are still over policed in a lot of ways. We still have this sense that we can do less with our bodies than men can because of this sexual factor, this supposedly inherent sexualness to women's bodies. And so I think it's good for us to, I guess, think critically about what we witness as being appropriate sexualness or not. And I don't think you were, you know, I think I just want to point out that when it comes to being a Sufi and being sexual, these things are not necessarily at odds with one another. I think that's my ultimate point here.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and that's another dangerous thing to talk about.
Oh yeah, it's very, very difficult to talk about that and not get burned at the stake.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So mostly we avoid it, at least in public talks.
Yeah, and I think it just needs to be said, though, that although these things are still kind of too difficult to talk about on the storefront end of things, we are happy to talk about those things, especially one-on-one, in, you know,
In some of our private
group
sessions that
stuff.
don't get published to the interwebs.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of painful stuff in there that sometimes needs to be dealt with on a very sensitive level, and we're happy to do that. Were you going to say more, Neil? Feel free.
I was just going to say I'm quite happy to have segued into an advertisement, and I'd support it. You don't do enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, we, on the one hand, we're like, oh, we should do that more, and then on the other, we're like, no, but yes, but no. So thank you, Neil, for enabling us, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think Erin has anything more to add at this moment. There we go. Okay. I've noticed a tendency towards, quote, hustling as a vehicle of success, and how it's become a measure by which some choose to place value on others. Yes, we actually, Mushtaq and I have been thinking about that a bit recently. It's amazing how far people feel they need to go and will go in order to gain what today we call clout. This is like a social media presence. It's the ability to have an opinion that people are willing to listen to. And they will do some outrageous stunts in order to gain that notoriety, in order to gain power through that. And Erin's talking more about like hustling, probably in the sense of working hard, working tirelessly, being willing to burn yourself out and to brag about working so hard that you burn yourself out.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Sigh.
Yep, he says exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's that other aspect to hustling where you will lie and cheat and do whatever it takes to gain influence over somebody. It's that undue influence.
Yeah.
That we hate so much.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where in terms of hustling, people have forgotten that we are not only what we produce, and that our bodies have rights in and of themselves. And we forget that when we're burning the candle at
Yeah, and
two
today,
ends.
especially where we are here in Silicon Valley, this is the nature of the culture. Is
Mhm.
you know, if you're like a game programmer, you are expected to do 20-hour days.
And be pounding those
Energy
caffeine
drinks.
and vitamin B drinks. Yeah. Yeah. Doing that microdosing, whatever it takes. And if it's burning you out, if it's
Who cares?
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. The other talk is probably always going to go on longer than our regular Sunday talks, our evening talks, just because we only do these once a month.
Yeah.
And we know how much you guys want to hang out with us, and we want to give you all of that.
Well, I think it becomes a richer experience as a result of us getting to communicate over the course of the talk, and not just be like, okay, we have an hour, maybe an hour and 20, let's just get it out there. But yeah, thanks for savoring this with us, everyone. Do we have anything we need to add or wrap up with, Mushtaq?
Just to reiterate, today was talking about if you actually wanted to become an initiated dervish in the no such tariqah, then this is how we encourage you to live.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing is required of you. We like you exactly as you are. You don't have to join our club to hang out with us. And like I said, you will probably be treated better if you don't.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, if that's your path to be a Sufi, then perhaps
eventually we will
yeah.
encourage you after we've tried to chase you away as much as possible.
Yep. So there you have it. Either way, you're welcome.
Yeah. And that idea, I mean, that's what my first teacher said to me when I came to him for initiation. He said, "What do you want to be a Sufi for? That's hard. There are lots of other ways you could do this that are way easier."
Yeah. With my first teacher, I got a lot of side eye, you know, like he was encouraging, but he was also like, just, you know, be sure that this is what you want to do. This is a serious commitment. This isn't just like a hobby. And
You got
it
that
was
from me too.
Yeah, I did. Yep. And it took time to be actually initiated. It took time to reach the point where that was on the table.
So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. Great conversation, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. It means a lot. And I think we all benefit from that. So thanks again.
All right, so I'm going to switch over to
Brady Bunch
Brady Bunch mode.
so we can wave to everybody.
There we are. And so, bye
All right,
all.
YouTube. Thanks
We'll
for
see
being
you
here.
next month.